Quest software has solutions that allow you to add an additional layer of security to your Microsoft environment. To learn how they can help you protect and detect changes in your environment, please go to quest.com/MPM. Make sure your team is prepared to fight off the latest cybersecurity threat. IT Pro TV is the resource to keep you and your IT team skills up to date. You can stream IT Pro TV's courses live and on demand worldwide, so there's no need to send staff to off-site training. Their team solution provides access to a supervisor portal for full control over your team's training schedule and group analytics. Visit itpro.tv/enterprise security and use the code ES30 to try it free for 7 days and receive 30% off your monthly membership for the lifetime of your active subscription. To learn more about IT Pro TV's team solution, sign up for a free demo of their supervisor portal. Pony Express. Check out their line of penetration testing devices, including the Pwn Pad, Pwn Phone, and Pwn Pro. For enterprises, there's Pwn Pulse, providing continuous visibility into wired, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth spectrums across all physical locations, including remote sites and branch offices. For all those hard-to-reach places, there's Pony Express. Visit them on the web at ponyexpress.com. Welcome back, everyone, to Enterprise Security Weekly. I just want to say quickly that this show very much was founded upon the notion of frustration. And John's not here, but I know that he shares this with me. Michael does as well. And it's frustration from many of us, all of us really, I think, in the security community and the industry that have been in positions where we've been frustrated in trying to understand what the technology from security vendors actually does for us. What problems does it solve? Why do they solve it better? All those questions that Michael has instilled upon us and become some of the foundation for many of our shows and conversations that we have with both the community and the industry. And so the kind of the mantra is like we go to a website or we attend a webinar or we talk to someone at a booth at a conference. And you're like, well, so what do you do? And they respond or you read it. And you're like, well, I don't know what that means. And so I kind of came up with the meme like from the movie, like no one knows what it means, but it's provocative. And that's kind of the theme for 4 of our news articles today. So when we create content here at Security Weekly, we don't want you to come away with, well, no one knows what it means, but it sounded provocative, so that's good. We want to send a message to our audience, our subscribers that have been, some of which have been with us for a really long time, because we can cut through that and tell you what it really means to you. So there's 2 webcasts coming up where we're going to do that. And maybe you've heard logarithm. Maybe you've heard security intelligence or security analytics. Maybe you've heard the term single pane of glass. And I tell you what, one of the reasons why the fine folks at Logarithm are sponsors, because I think they do a lot of those things well and solve those problems. So Chris Martin is coming on from Logarithm, and if you're like, well, I know I've got like an endpoint problem and I can't sift through my logs and I want to monitor my network and I don't understand all the messaging from these vendors, you can sit down with someone like Chris Martin and myself where it's an enterprise security hot seat, and for an hour, we're going to talk about and ask those questions of Chris. So what do you do? What problems do you solve? What are the success stories? How can this really help me? And I find it's been very beneficial to all of our subscribers. So go to securityweekly.com/logarithm. Now, if you've been hearing Pony Express's ads, they talk about Pwn Pulse. Now, some of you may be thinking, yeah, like I've heard of that, but I don't quite know how it can help me and what it means to me. Come here, Larry Pesce and myself talk about some of the wireless security issues that we've seen this year and how our fine friends at Pony Express can help. Now, the cool thing is Larry and I both, I just got mine this week. Larry's been playing with it for a while, got a Pwn Pulse that allows you to monitor the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth in your environment. So we're going to talk about what that means and how that can help you. I've certainly had a number of advisory calls this year where we've talked about that, and Pony Express comes up because their solution, they're solving a unique problem in a unique way, and this is your chance to do a deep dive. securityweekly.com/pony. You can register for that one as well. So some great webcasts coming up, and ties into our theme of no one knows what it means, but it's provocative because that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. The first of those stories comes from GuardiCore, which is basically, it's hard. It's provocative, right? The micro-segmentation sounds so awesome. Like, I want micro-segmentation. Like, segmentation is great. Let's do some micro-segmentation. Maybe some macro-segmentation. Sounds great. Now, GuardiCore has a really good solution. I did take a briefing with them last year. I haven't caught up with them this past year. But I do like their technology. I like the problems they're trying to solve and helping you secure your cloud and virtualization platforms. Now, they say microsegmentation is gaining traction to create software-defined security zones in the clouds and data centers to isolate assets from one another to reduce risk. I think it's a pretty good problem statement, right? You have all these different assets. You want to separate them and really reduce your risk. Okay, that's fine. The path to meaningful microsegmentation, though, it goes on to say, can be full of challenges due to incomplete visibility into east-west traffic flows, inflexible policy engines, and lack of multi-cloud support. Now, those are also problems, although difficult to distill down into one sentence to understand exactly what that means for you if you're implementing a security program. I would like to learn more about GuardiCore, and they did have an announcement this week about microsegmentation. My whole question is, well, how does that differ if you're looking at this microsegmentation platform? Does this integrate with containers, which is a theme for this show, and not by my choice? This is what was in the news this week. Does it integrate with containers? Is it on top of containers? Is it for stuff that you're not doing containers? How does it fit into your overall application security strategy? Although it does sound like it's more kind of a platform and network and operating system architecture more so than your application architecture. Michael, your thoughts? Have you been exposed to GuardiCore in any capacity?
I haven't, which is odd because they are a self-proclaimed leader in cloud and data center security. Here's the thing, I've been thinking about this a lot. You and I have been talking about it a little bit across the different programs. So you've got to help me understand the problem, and then give me the consequences, and then talk to me about the solution, and then show me how you solve that. And I'm reading this and I'm going, okay, I don't get it. But to your point, it's provocative. It sounds good. I don't know what meaningful microsegmentation is as opposed to unmeaningful. I mean, it's like, is there a bad way to do it? It's just lots of words here. Maybe if you're in this particular thing, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It sounds nice, but to be fair, I'm not really seeing anything here that gets me really excited.
I think it's the what are you segmenting question that the answer to that question is missing. Are you segmenting in Active Directory? Because, right, we know in Active Directory it's kind of just one big open field. Like, once you're in, it's pretty much, no holds barred. Are you segmenting on the network side? Are you segmenting users and their access? Are you segmenting applications? All the above? And what's the benefit in each of those areas of segment? Like, what each of those are different problems conceivably, and how does that help me if I'm implementing microsegmentation? And what's the difference? Like you pointed out, Michael, what's the difference between doing it wrong and doing it right, and what are the consequences of that? I thought that was very good.
Well, as you were pointing out the frustration, a lot of people will use these words, and it's either I don't think that means what you think it means, or okay, well, that's a nice adjective, or that's a nice adverb. And what does that add to it? It's not to beat a dead horse, but we saw a lot of that around the Apple stuff. It's the worst ever. It's the biggest data breach. This was trivial. Whoa, stop, everybody, stop. Just tell me what happened, and then tell me what I should do about it. I don't need all the editorializing on it. And of course, if you're trying to market, people try to do this, and it's really kind of interesting. But by the way, Paul, I'm on their page. Workload protection for any cloud or data center. Secure critical IT assets through better visibility, segmentation, threat detection, and response. That's a lot of stuff. And as you and I have talked about, so as soon as you get into any sort of that detection response cycle, wait, so are you the visibility? Are you the detection? Are you the response? Well, you're doing segmentation. Well, micro-segmentation. I mean, what's next? Pico-segmentation?
Well, what I find is interesting,
I get it.
and I think a lot of what I noticed this week especially is, and in talking with security vendors when we go to conferences, Michael, you and I experienced this, and it's interesting, as I notice a theme, is that the security vendor will explain, well, we do this. In other words, and really that answer is we're in this space. We're a cloud security company. We're a vulnerability management. And whatever the case may be, we're application security. Okay, that's great. That doesn't really, it tells me what space you're in, right? That's it. potentially.
It's maybe a category. Maybe.
Yeah. But then they use terms such as, we increase visibility, we reduce risk. If you're using that to describe what you do, I don't think it's very good, because it doesn't really tell me everything. Of course, everyone's trying to increase visibility and reduce risk. I mean, that's just, you're a security vendor. You should be doing that. Right. And those aren't descriptive enough to tell me what you do. So you'll see a lot of that when we cover these stories. There's a lot of themes and trends in the way they describe their services. And a lot of those have to do with reducing risk, increasing visibility. We help you detect faster. Okay, right, that still doesn't really tell me anything.
That's why there's so much noise, Paul. It's like somebody says, well, that's what everybody else does, and we do that too. Oh, they want visibility? We do visibility. Cool. How? I don't know, but it's more visible.
What's more visible?
Well, that's exactly, it's that thing. It's I've worked with people over the years that when they're going for a position, they'll always say, like, I'm a great communicator. I'm good at managing people. I know how. Everybody says that, people. Everybody says that. Just stop with it, because you're just noise at that point. It's just noise. And then to rise above the noise, this is the other thing I find. People believe that, well, if I just keep talking, I'm going to lay out a buffet of options and people will pick out the ones they like. No, they read the first paragraph, they scratch their head to go, oh, cool, let me go play solitaire or Clash of Clans or something else, and they're off. They're done.
Well, part of the frustration that fuels the show is that many of these vendors have fantastic solutions.
Yeah, they have good stuff.
Right?
Yeah.
And so Sumo Logic conceivably could have a fantastic solution. And they just
actually do have a pretty good solution.
Okay, yeah. So there you go. And so they've announced support for Docker and Kubernetes, which I think is great, right? We're going in this container-based theme here. And in their announcement, they say they streamline the data ingestion process with open source and native integrations commonly used by Kubernetes and Docker. Okay, you do stuff with Kubernetes and Docker. We get that. But they say they provide improved visualization and optimized analytics to monitor the pulse of Kubernetes-based applications. So basically they're saying we increase visibility, we optimize analytics. That's another term that doesn't really mean anything to me. I'm sorry. You optimize analytics. What does that mean? That I don't know. That could mean a million different things. So they say the unified approach gives users full visibility and continuous intelligence into their applications and microservices architecture, reduces complexity, and improves customer experience. Those are all, again, things that are intangibles for the most part, unless you're qualified. Like, you have to qualify those. I mean, we already said it, that it gives users full visibility. What does that mean? Visibility into what and why and for what purpose and for what goal? I don't get it. I mean, I understand that if you're in a DevOps environment and you're using Kubernetes to orchestrate containers and manage your applications, yeah, you've got some challenges today in the way that you monitor that, and we need to define what those goals are for monitoring and visibility. It's slightly different from the way we used to try to monitor applications, but essentially it's the same thing. Your goals really haven't changed. Like, I want to know if someone gained unauthorized access and how far they can get with that access. What are the different levels of gaining access? Where's the more important data, and how difficult is it to access that? I don't know. That's just...
No, it's good. It's funny. As you were reading that sentence, I decided to do something rare. I counted the number of words in the sentence. 27 words. But what I also noticed is the word "and" is used 3 times.
Yep. That's
too much. Folks, that's a compound sentence. Break that stuff up. And I know, listen, someone's going to say, but Michael, we're educated. We can read longer sentences. Yeah, okay, well, go read War and Peace and enjoy your really crazy long sentences. But for the rest of the world trying to digest stuff faster, go more Hemingway and go a little shorter and simpler to read. But what's interesting is, after you got talking about it, it's, again, not clear to me the problem that they're solving here. It's got a lot of stats. It's got a lot of stuff, and as you just said, I mean, I've actually enjoyed talking to the people from Sumo Logic in years past. I think that they've got their stuff together. I think that they're tight. They're a good team. They seem to know what they're doing. But I've kind of read this and I went, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I don't understand them as well as I think I do. Or something.
Another great frustration point that I think this year is really highlighted. Is AI and machine learning. And as the world moves, and so, I mean, We're going to
big data, baby. Big data for the win.
I don't want to beat a dead horse, right? Everyone's touting their AI and machine learning. What I thought was interesting about this article, and this is in the context of F-Secure, they say as the world is fast moving towards Internet of Things and connected devices, deployment of AI has become inevitable for cybersecurity firms to analyze huge amount of data. They don't say huge amounts; they say huge amount. Huge amount of data to save networks from infiltration attempts. That's a very, very poor sentence for a lot of reasons. But what I find, my question is, when we talk about the benefits of AI and machine learning, is the Internet of Things, is that a problem? Is that a symptom? Is that why are they trying to tie it to just the Internet of Things when there are a lot more and different problems that we face as information security professionals?
Oh, Paul, that's a great point. Until you pointed that out, I hadn't even considered that. I granted, I was kind of baffled by the whole thing. Well, and the thing too is, as you're reading Internet of Things, all I could think to myself is embedded devices. You mean the stuff Paul's been doing for like a really long time, wrote books on and understands it? Yeah, it's this. So basically, what you're telling me is this is a pitch for the world is saying IoT, and we're going to say IoT, and we're going to tell them that we're using AI to combat IoT to improve security. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well, that sounds like a boilerplate press release.
Well, and it's very different from, of course, Pony Express that actually helps with the Internet of Things problem.
Dude, hold on. Did you read this next sentence? This is lovely. Networks are persistently exposed to threats. Oh, it's so it's basically APT, but we use slightly different language. I'm sorry. I know people work hard at this, and I always try to be the one who is polite. If you're in PR or marketing and you reach out and you try to do a briefing, I always try to be polite because I get it. You got a job to do too. Mm-hmm. But I think there's a lesson here. If you're in the marketing, now you and I, Paul, we've taken calls with people in marketing that know their stuff. Like it's like our eyes get wide, and it's like, whoa, okay. So how are you? And it's funny because they're answering deeply technical questions, and then they'll get to one and they go, well, I'm not really the technical person. Let me get somebody on the phone for you. And you're like, hold on though, you've answered every other freaking question really well. Okay, what? And I'm always the one that's going, all right. So what's your background? Like, how did you do that? And so here's the point. If you're in one of these organizations and you're excited about what you're doing, steer them away from the buzzwords and take that little bit. And it does take more time. I get that. Mm-hmm. But go spend time, right? I'm gonna do this. Visualizing it. Create better visualization. But I mean that sincerely. Go to the whiteboard and draw it up and talk about what each of those steps are. And then tell me what problem that the target you're going after, the person that you're selling to, is trying to solve. Use that language, and you will come up with something that when we read it, we go, oh, that's pretty freaking cool. And we'll be able to explain it better. You'll be able to understand it better, and you'll get better sales and traction. It's amazing to me.
The other story that we had here was CloudPassage automates security, which just, why do you lead it? Don't lead in anyway. Automates security compliance for Docker containers. Now, I'll give them a break on the title. I think it's exciting for security vendors such as CloudPassage to come out and embrace support for containers. This is going to be a trend moving into next year. Got a lot of great things planned on that, including a talk that I'm working on for next year as well. Now, what's interesting is they say Containers Secure is their product, covers 5 key elements essential to container security: host security, continuous image assurance, runtime configuration assessment, visibility/compliance, and DevOps, ecosystem integration. What I want to see in this article is a bulleted list of those 5 things, and even a sentence that describes the value behind each of those things. And I know they have it. I know there's a product marketing manager that has that information and either wasn't given the opportunity to put it in, or put it in and it got taken out, and just has that information, because I know that if you have those 5 things in a new product announcement, you know the details behind those 5 things, and I want to hear about them, because I think they actually hit on some really good areas. But giving 2 to 3 words for each thing doesn't give me enough information to make a decision about how useful that could be for organizations today.
Let's stand up for a second, because not only are you dead on correct with that, but you've got experience. You've been playing with this. Take somebody like me who's every week that we talk about it says, all right, Michael, go make some time and get more up to speed on this. But I haven't yet. So if they had done that, and in fact, I'll even give them the formula. Give me the feature. Then when you write the rest of your bullet point around it, give me a little bit more of the benefit, but start by giving me the problem. So what problem is that solving, and why is this a benefit to me? Holy cow, you would bring me up your curve so fast, because I don't even know if I have these problems or not until I read your bullet point. If you give me a properly crafted bullet point, I go, oh, I didn't think of that. And if you're the person who's educating me, and let's be fair, Docker, as you pointed out, it's Docker and the Kubernetes stuff and all of these are all coming up next year when a lot of people are going to start paying attention to it. If you're the company who's better educating us now, you're the one we're going to turn to, because you helped me understand it.
If they could have even just taken what I think is the most compelling thing out of those 5 items, which is continuous image assurance. Images or containers move through your environment, and how they move is largely dependent on your environment and your process. And what does assurance mean in that context? Does it mean that when the container is built, there's some assurance that there's security controls being built in? Does it mean as it moves through development in QA, there's some additional assurance that there are no further exposures? Does it mean once it's in production, you're assuring that someone hasn't gained unauthorized access to that image, or that someone has made a copy of that image? You're assuring that it hasn't been stolen. Like what does that mean? Those are all problems that we have when we talk about containers and DevOps. Which are you addressing? All of them, some of them, and how are you doing that? Would be my question.
Yeah, and I think they're fair questions. And I appreciate if you're on the marketing side, you're going to say, hold on, it was a press release, we needed to go fast with it. Okay, but you didn't link us to anything that had that. You didn't draw that type of stuff out, and that's where it's going to make a lot more sense.
They could have linked to something that told me that. Certainly.
That's exactly right. I don't think that would have been a challenge.
97%.
And that would be the kind of thing that we would point people to.
Yeah, and so maybe half the time we get linked to something, and 97% of the time it's a little more information, but not answering my questions.
Yep.
Hence the show.
Yeah, well, and that's why we get to do the interviews and ask the questions that we ask and try to think about it.
Yeah.
So what do you think about all these acquisitions? What is that going to mean if you're an enterprise defender today? Is your head swimming? Are you even paying attention to these things?
Yeah. Well, Michael and I were talking right before this segment, because we're going to do Startup Security Weekly later in the week and talk about these very same stories likely. But on this show, we wanted to we made the executive decision that we would talk about what it means if you're an enterprise defender today working in an enterprise, and we'll talk about the first one. McAfee has acquired Sky High Networks. What does that mean for you? And I think, Michael, your question is great. Like, are you even thinking about it? Do you even know? Does it even matter? If you're a Sky High Networks customer, what are the implications? If you're a McAfee customer and they acquire this new great technology, what does that mean? Are you evaluating CASBs, for example? And maybe this changes your decision process. Maybe this changes your evaluation process. I typically cover these when I do briefing calls with folks and say, what are you using for this technology? Oh, that company just bought this CASB vendor. And if you're evaluating CASB, now you get to call up McAfee and say, I want a demo. How does that integrate with the rest of, if I already have McAfee? Are there integrations that make it easier for me to use? And let's face it, we talk about evaluating security technology all the time. I think one of the most overlooked is how easy it is to use and integrate into your existing processes. And these acquisitions offer an opportunity to potentially make that easier on you. Now, they may not have some of the other features or as deep a feature set or insights as some of the other products, but they could be of great benefit to you because they fit within your existing tool set, integrations, and process and workflow.
Well, let's give people 3 things to look at, right? So what you're talking about there is, if we look at value prop starts out with the problem you're trying to solve, the value you create if you solve that problem or that your solution creates. That third part's what you're just talking about. That's the impact. You got to measure that across 3 areas. How does it impact our communication? How does it impact our current processes? How does it impact our current technology? So if you integrate with it and or streamline it, make it better, that's a plus. If I've got to learn a new way of talking, and that's going to create new processes for people that are already busy and don't want to change, and it doesn't really work. So you talked before about single pane of glass. What we're going to do is add another screen to you. Man, that's just not going to work for me. But here's the other thing too. So when we look at this then, and you're asking those questions, so McAfee, they're not a new brand. And it doesn't matter what their history is, right? So they got acquired by Intel. They got spun off by Intel. By the way, because we're going to talk about it in a minute, Thoma Bravo is one of the companies that has money tied up in McAfee. And we recently on Startup talked about how I haven't really seen a lot out of them yet. Well, here we go. They're starting to get ready, and they acquire a CASB. And then as you've listed out in the notes here, a lot of other CASBs have been acquired at some level in recent history. So what does that tell us? It tells us CASB is a feature, not a standalone type of thing. It tells us it's getting rolled in. So if you already have McAfee, well, this might be a benefit for you. If you're currently evaluating stuff, if it were me, I would go look to whoever your current big providers are instead of trying to find that single point. Because the thing about this too is from an integration perspective, if you're going to rip and replace, there's a learning curve to that. There just is. But what we keep seeing, and this is not going to change, you're always going to have innovators, and they're going to create really cool stuff, and then the big guys are going to buy them up. That's essentially the new level of R&D. So if you don't have a CASB yet, well, you got a lot of options now from big players. That's great. It's tested out. You're good to go. It's going to be a new feature set. It does mean that I would ask questions about how they traditionally integrate into their organization, how they integrate into the existing products that I currently have from you as the provider, and or how it all plays well in whatever sandbox you've got. But that's kind of the way I start looking at some of these things, is that, if you're with, for example, right, in the news, Trend, or you're with McAfee, or you're with Symantec, or you're heavily relying on Cisco, okay. Well, that's great then. I mean, that's your path. They're a preferred provider for your organization. Take a look at what they've got and ask them those questions. Ask them the impact questions. How does this integrate with what I currently buy from you? How does this integrate with the rest of my environment? And frankly, the reason I would spin away from them is they really don't meet your properly defined needs, which has got a big asterisk next to it, or they just don't integrate. Like the amount of friction you're going to incur trying to integrate them is just overwhelming to you, and so you're going to go seek another vendor. Now, and I know nobody wants to hear that, but that's the way it works.
Trend bought Immunio, which I always considered more of an application security company. Apparently, they're more of a container security play. And what I like is they went into some more of that detail that we didn't see in the CloudPassage press release. And I understand CloudPassage, that was a press release. I get it. And Immunio provides image scanning, which identifies security issues so they can be addressed prior to deployment. And that's important in that process when you're building these containers to apply security at that level. Tenable actually bought a company that does that. It integrated it into their processes. So you see now two of these companies that provided that container security level that happens in the development process, which I think is really important because not all developers are sysadmins or network security folks or security folks in general, giving them the tools and the knowledge that, hey, when you build this stuff, make sure you build security in from the start. Now, the nice thing about containers is once they are published, you can easily publish new ones and speed your development cycles. However, making sure that image doesn't have security vulnerabilities before it's deployed is awesome. Immunio sounds like they were doing that and got bought by Trend Micro.
Yeah, one of the things, too, I'm going to give a hat tip here to Trend. I remember a number of years ago, I got to get an inside look at how Trend was doing some stuff early on with VMware. And what I remember was asking them, okay, so did you just buy this? How did you do it? And they said, we actually had a good relationship with the VMware folks, and we sat down and we talked about some of the challenges, and we re-envisioned a way to do it. We invested in it. We partnered with this other company. They ended up buying the company, and they said, look, it needed to get done. The point is, I thought it was a good approach. It wasn't just, hey, let's acquire it because it's worth acquiring. I thought that Trend took a pretty measured, okay, this is a problem. This is a problem people have. Let's think about a good way to solve it. And to your point, as I'm reading this, that last bit, which identifies security issues so they can be addressed prior to deployment. I dig that. That makes sense to me. That is well thought out. And so, but again, what it shows is if you're not paying attention to it yet, here's what I'm picking up so far. Not a big surprise. cloud continues to be big, but a CASB that's going to give you better data, better controls, better insights, better everything is necessary. If you don't have one today, it's not on your radar, not on your tech map, not in your budgeting. Yeah, you got to get hot on that. Don't delay. But the good news is the industry's sorting itself out, and you probably have access to it through existing relationships. Also, then, we're looking at micro-segmentation, we're looking at microservices, we're looking at we're looking at containers. So if that's something that you haven't paid attention to yet, like me, then now is a good time. Paul, I don't know about you. We used to say things slow down between Thanksgiving and Christmas. I don't find that to be the case anymore, and I certainly don't find it to be the case with security. But if you get a little bit of time, that is probably something to take a look at. What do you make of the Barracuda Networks acquisition? So Thoma Bravo, $1.6 billion deal. It's about a 22% benefit over what they closed at, let's say, last Friday. Mm-hmm. We'll get into those details more on the startup show. But $1.6 billion Thoma Bravo. By the way, I pulled it up. Current investments at Thoma Bravo. Bomgar, you and I have talked to Bomgar. Mm-hmm. They got our A for the day at one of the things. CompuWare, Continuum Managed Services. They bought DigiCert a little while ago. Let's see, they've got Dynatrace, which is more on performance management.
And they bought DigiCert from Symantec. Symantec sold off one of their divisions. I actually think I have a call with them maybe today.
Symantec sold off a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
They've got Imprivata. They've got a big investment in McAfee. They've got there's a couple others too. Risk Connect. They're part of Riverbed, which I think is interesting. They're part of SailPoint, successful IPO recently. They're part of SolarWinds. They're part of Sparta. Wow. If you look at all the investments that Thoma Bravo has made, they basically took a company that was publicly listed, and they're now private equity owned and private. Private equity exists. I mean, if you look at it traditionally, they take companies, and they take companies in one of two capacities. And this is why I'm kind of curious your take on this. Look, we've seen the Barracuda Networks stuff for years, so they're not a new company. Publicly traded, trading well, doing well, marketing fantastically, and making a lot of acquisitions recently. So private equity a lot of times will come in, they'll buy a company that's struggling, like a McAfee. Mm-hmm. They'll pump a lot of dollars into it. They'll help them restructure themselves. They'll redefine their internal processes. They'll give them some focus. They'll pump them up. Let's say they put $2 billion in. A couple of years later, they're going to try to sell them for $4 billion. That's where they make their money. Where do you see this working then from an enterprise perspective? And did you see Barracuda making a big enterprise play, or do you think this is now how Barracuda? I always thought Barracuda was more SMB mid-market. Did I get that wrong?
No, I think you're right. But I think any security firm that targets the mid-market always tries to latch onto some of those enterprises as well. And really my estimation on that is enterprises take different approaches to security. And so at a very high level, you'll have a very large enterprise with a smaller team that will outsource more. You may have then an enterprise with a pretty large team that does a little more in-house. In either case, they may decide that whatever this particular thing is, this particular problem, we're going to solve it with a solution like Barracuda. And so there's always going to be, not always, but a lot of times there's a small percentage of enterprises that go, yeah, we'll go with the Barracuda or some other provider that typically services the mid-market. But in this particular enterprise, they've kind of looked at this problem as a more of a mid-market, outsource kind of thing. And we've talked about that over the past couple of years, and I definitely still see that trend. I think for Barracuda customers, I don't think much changes here, Michael. In the other two acquisitions, certainly things might change. In this one, this seems like, they're just like the parent company's different, and it's business as usual for Barracuda. In fact, you may see some improvements.
I was going to say, if you look at it, their numbers are good, their revenues are good, they're a healthy company, but chances are they wanted to do something that was a little tougher to do being publicly traded. Thoma Bravo saw it. They got excited about it. They came into it. Barracuda has a good reputation. I've never come across anybody that's had a problem with them. To be fair, I didn't realize all the stuff that they were doing. Here, on November 15th, the company announced expanded cloud capabilities for its web application firewall, next-gen firewall products, included usage-based billing for the next-gen firewall running the Amazon Web Services cloud, as well as automated configuration capabilities for the WAF, thanks to an integration with the Puppet DevOps tool. Okay, so you know what? I said they seem like a mid-market play, but that sure feels enterprise to me. So Barracuda has been maybe a little bit too quietly growing in all the right directions. But here's the thing I always look at. When you see these huge private equity firms like Thoma Bravo making these types of acquisitions, and then go back, look at their stuff, I feel like what we might see down the road is one of these acquisitions ends up being the vehicle to start to consolidate the others. So I think logically we could have said that was McAfee, but maybe we're going to start to see now that Barracuda starts to fold in some of the other companies that they've had as well. So, if I'm an enterprise person today, I think you're right. I think if I'm already using it, it doesn't really change. If I'm not using it, it might be worth taking a look at. They might have some stuff that's changed, and I don't think you'll go wrong based on everything that we're seeing. But then broader, what it means is we talk about looking at your technology roadmap or thinking ahead or trying to anticipate or understand what's going on. These are those things that you take a look at and say, where do we see the marketplace consolidating? And how would that benefit us? Where can I get a better solution, a cheaper solution, or enhance my capabilities so I can free my team up to go work on some of these other things? That's how if I'm on the inside, I'm looking at some of these types of things. So to this one, what I do is I'd probably go take another look at what Barracuda is offering, because it seems to be different than the impression that I had. And I'd maybe consider who else is part of the Thoma Bravo family and see if I see any synergies in there that might benefit me, because they might benefit you even more in the future.
Michael said synergies.
I had to. I also said visibility, and I said synergies. I'm going to start just working these in now. We'll create a bingo card.
Yeah, we got a bingo card. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening and watching Enterprise Security Weekly. We'll see you next time.